Southeastern North Carolina radio reading service, a United Partner Ray agency. We welcome you to its program entitled Off the Bookshelf. Your reader is Hiba Khan, and I will be reading The Kite Runner by Khalid Hussein. We reached where Amir had a fight with a man with the sunglasses that turned out to be Asif. Then Sahrat saved him, and they both left. Chapter 23. Faces poke through the haze, lingered, fade away. They peer down, ask me questions. They all ask questions. Do I know who I am? Do I hurt anywhere? I know who I am, and I hurt everywhere. I wanted to tell them this, but talking hurts. I know this because some time ago, maybe a year ago, maybe 2, maybe 10, I tried to talk to a child with rouge on his cheeks and eyes near black. This child, yes, I see him now. We are in a car of sorts, the child and I don't think Suraya is driving because Suraya never drives this fast. I want to say something to the child. It seems very important that I do, but I don't remember what I wanted to say, or why I might have been important. Maybe I want to tell him to stop crying, that everything will be alright right now. Maybe not. For some reason I can't think of, I want to thank the child. Faces. They're all wearing green hats. They slip in and out of view. They talk rapidly, use words that I don't understand. I hear words. I hear other voices, other noises, beeps and alarms, and always more faces. Peering down, I don't remember any of them, except for the one with the gel in his hair and the Clark Gable mustache. The one with the Africa stain on his cap. Mr. Soap Opera star, that's funny. I want to laugh now, but laughing hurts too. I fade away. I fade out. She says her name is Aisha, like the Prophet's wife. Her graying hair is parted in the middle and tied in a ponytail. Her nose pierced with a stud shaped like the sun. She wears bifocals that make her eyes bug out. She wears green too, and her hands too soft. She sees me looking at her and smiles, says something in English. Something is jabbing at the side of my chest. I fade out. A man is standing at my bedside. I know him. He is dark and lanky, has a long beard. He wears a hat. What are those hats called? Pepples? Wears it tilted to one side like a famous person whose name escapes me now. I know this man. He drove me somewhere a few years ago. I know him. There's something wrong with my mouth. I hear a bubbling sound. I fade out. My right arm burns. The woman with the bifocals and sun-shaped stud is hunched over my arm, attaching a clear plastic tubing to it. She says it's the potassium. It stings like a bee, no? She says. It does. What's her name? Something to do with the Prophet. I know her from a few years ago. She used to wear her hair in a ponytail. Now it's pulled back, tied in a bun. Suraya wore her hair like that the first time we spoke. When was that? Last week? Aisha, yes. There's something wrong with my mouth, and that thing jabbing at my chest. I fade out. We are in the Sulaiman Mountains of Baluchistan, and Baba is wrestling the black bear. He's the Baba of my childhood, Tufan Aga, the towering specimen of Pashtun white, not the withered man under the blankets, the man with the sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. They roll over a patch of green grass. Baba and the beast. Baba's curly brown hair flying. The bear roars. Or maybe it's Baba. Spittle and blood fly. claw and hands white. They fall to the ground with a loud thud, and Baba is still sitting on the bear's chest. His fingers lean in its snout. He looks at me, and I see. He's me. I'm wrestling today. I wake up. The lanky dark man is back at my bedside. His name is Freddy, I remember now, and with him is the child from the car. His face reminds me of the sound of bugs. I'm thirsty. I fade out. I keep fading in and out. The name of the man with the Clark Gable mustache turned out to be Dr. Faruqi. He wasn't a soap opera star at all, but a head and neck surgeon, though I kept thinking of him as one named Armand in some steepy soap set on a tropical island. Where am I wanted to ask, but my mouth wouldn't open. I frowned, grunted. Armand smiled. His teeth were blinding white. Not yet, Amir, he said, but soon. When the wires are out, he spoke English with a thick, rolling Urdu accent. Wires? Armand crossed his arms. He had hairy forearms and wore a gold wedding ring. You must be wondering where you are. What happened to you? That's perfectly normal. The post-surgical state is always disorienting, so I'll tell you what I know. I wanted to ask him about the wires. Post-surgical? Where's Aisha? I wanted her to smile at me. Wanted her soft hands in mine. Armand frowned, cocked one eyebrow in a slightly self-important way. You are in a hospital in Peshawar. You've been here 2 days. You have suffered some very significant injuries. Amir, I should tell you. I would say you're very lucky to be alive, my friend. He swayed his index back and forth, like a pendulum when he says this. Your spleen had ruptured, probably fortunately for you, a delayed rupture because you had signs of early hemorrhage into your abdominal cavity. My colleagues from the general surgery unit had perform an emergency splenectomy. If it had ruptured earlier, you would have bled to death. He patted me on the arm, the one with the IV, and smiled. You also suffered 7 broken ribs. One of them caused pneumothorax. I frowned, tried to open my mouth, remembered about the wires. That means a punctured lung, Armand explained. He tugged at a clear plastic tubing at the left side. I felt the jabbing against my chest. We sealed the leak with this chest tube. I followed the tube, poking through bandages on my chest at a container half filled with columns of water. The bubbling sound came from there. You had also suffered various lacerations. Lacerations, that means cuts. I want to tell him I knew what the word meant. I was a writer. I went to open my mouth, forgot about the wires again. The worst laceration was the one on your upper lip, Armand said. The impact had cut your lip into two, clean down the middle. But don't worry, the plastic guys sewed it back together, and they think you have an excellent results, though there will be a scar. That is unavoidable. There was also an orbital fracture on the left side. That's the eye socket bone. And we had to fix that too. The wires in your jaws will come out in about 6 weeks, Armand said. Until then, it's liquids and snakes, and liquids and shakes. You will lose some weight, and you will be talking like Al Pacino from the first Godfather movie for a while. He laughed. But you have a job to do today. Do you know what that is? I shook my head. Your job today is to pass gas. You do that, and we can start feeding you liquids. No fart, no food. He laughed again. Later, after Aisha changed the IV tubing, she raised her head, raised the head of the bed, like I'd asked. I thought about what had happened to me. Ruptured spleen, broken teeth, punctured lung, busted eye socket. But I watched a pigeon peck at the breadcrumb on the windowsill. I kept thinking of something else. Armand, Dr. Faruqi had said, the impact had cut your upper lip into two. He had said, clean down in the middle. Clean down in the middle, like a hairline. Farid and Sohrab came to visit the next day. Do you know who we are today? Do you remember? Farid said, only half jokingly. I nodded. Alhamdulillah, he said, beaming. No more talking nonsense. Thank you, Farid, I said, through jaws wired shut. Armand was right. I did sound like Al Pacino from The Godfather, and my tongue surprised me. Every time it poked in one of the empty spaces left by the teeth I had swallowed. I mean, thank you. For everything. He waved a hand, blushed a little bit. But Bess, it's not worthy of thanks, he said. I turned to Sohrab. He was wearing a new outfit, light brown pirhan tumban that looked a bit big for him, and a black skull cap. He was looking down at his feet, toying with the IV line coiled on the bed. We were never properly introduced, I said. I offered him my hand. I'm Amir. He looked at my hand, then to me. You are Amir Al-Gham, father told me about? He said, yes, I remember the words from Hassan's letter. I have told much about you to Farzan and Jana and Sohrab, about us growing up together and playing games and running in the streets. They laugh at the stories of all the mischief you and I used to cause. I owe you thanks too, Sohrab Jan, I said. You saved my life. He didn't say anything. I dropped my hand when he didn't take it. I like your new clothes, I mumbled. They're my son's, Farid said. He has outgrown them. They fit Sohrab pretty well, I would say. Sohrab could stay with me, he said, until we found a place for him. But don't have a lot of room. But what can I do? I can't leave him on the streets. Besides, my child have taken a liking to him. Well, Sohrab? But the boy just kept looking down, twirling the line with his finger. I've been meaning to ask, Farid said, a little hesitantly. What happened in that house? What happened between you and the Talib? Let's just say we both got what we deserved, I said. Farid nodded, didn't push it. It occurred to me that somewhere between the time he had left Peshawar for Afghanistan and now, we had become friends. I've been meaning to ask something too. What? I didn't want to ask. I'm afraid for the answer. Rahim Khan, I said. He's gone. My heart skipped. Is he? No. Just gone. He handed me a folded piece of paper and a small key. The landlord gave me this when I went looking for him. He said Rahim Khan left the day after we did. Where did he go? Farid shrugged. The landlord didn't know. He and Rahim Khan left the letter and the key for you and took his leave. His checked watch. He checked his watch. I'd better go. Be up, Sohrab. Could you leave him here for a while? I said. Pick him up later. I turned to Sohrab. Do you want to stay here with me for a while? He shrugged and said nothing. Of course, Farid said. I'll pick him up just before the evening namaz. There were 3 other patients in the room. 2 older men, one with a cast on his leg, the other wheezing with asthma. and a young man of 15 or 16 who'd had appendix in surgery. The old guy in the cast stared at us without blinking, his eyes switching from me to the Hazara boy sitting on my stool. My roommate's families, old women in bright shalwar, children, men wearing skull caps, shuffled noisily in and out of the room. They brought with them pakoras, biryani, and other food. Sometimes people just wandered into the room, like the tall bearded man who walked in just before Farid and Sohrab arrived. He wore a brown blanket wrapped around him. Aisha asked him something in Urdu. He paid her no attention and scanned the room with his eyes. I thought he looked at me a little longer than necessary. When the nurse spoke to him, he just spun around and left. "How are you?" I asked Sohrab. He shrugged, looked at his hands. "Are you hungry?" The lady there gave him a plate of biryani. "But I can't eat it," I said. I don't know what else to say to him. "You want it?" He shook his head. "Do you want to talk?" He shook his head again. We sat there like that for a while, silent. Me propped up in bed, two pillows behind my back, Sohrab on the three-legged stool next to my bed. I fell asleep at some point, and when I woke up, daylight had dimmed a bit. The shadows had stretched, and Sohrab was still sitting next to me. He was still looking down at his hands. That night, after Farid picked up Sohrab, I unfolded Rahim Khan's letter. I had delayed reading it as long as possible. It read, "Amir Jan, Inshallah you have reached this letter safely. I pray that I have not put you in harm's way and that Afghanistan has not been too unkind to you. You have been in my prayers since the day you left. You were right of all those years I suspect that I knew, but I didn't. Hassan told me shortly after it happened. But what you did was wrong, Amir Jan. But do not forget that you were a boy when it happened. A troubled little boy. You were too hard on yourself then, and you still are. I saw it in your eyes in Peshawar. But I hope you will heed this. A man who has no conscience, no God, no goodness, does not suffer. I hope your suffering comes to an end with this journey to Afghanistan. Amir Janan, I am ashamed for the lies we told you all those years. You were right to be angry in Peshawar. You had the right to know. So did Hassan. I know it doesn't absolve anyone of anything, but the Kabul we lived in those days was a strange world, one in which some things mattered more than the truth. Amir Jan, I know how hard your father was on you when you were growing up. I saw you had suffered and yearned for his affections, and my heart bled for you. But your father was a good man, torn between two halves, Amir Jan, you and Hassan. He loved you both, but he could not love Hassan the way he longed to openly and as a father. So he took it out on you instead. Amir, the socially legitimate half, the half that represented the riches he had inherited, and the sin with impunity, privileges that came with them. When he saw you, he saw himself and his guilt. You are still angry, and I realize it is far too early to expect you to accept this. But maybe someday you will see that when your father was hard on you, he was also being hard on himself. Your father, like you, was a tortured soul, Amir Jan. I cannot describe to you the depth and blackness of the sorrow that came over me when I learned of his passing. I loved him because he was my friend, but also because he was a good man, maybe even a great man. And this is what I want you to understand. And real good, was born out of your father's remorse. Sometimes I think everything he did, feeding the poor on the streets, building the orphanage, giving money to friends in need, it was all his way of redeeming himself. And that, I believe, is what true redemption is, Amir Jan, when guilt leads to good. I know that in the end, God will forgive. He will forgive your father, me, and you too. I hope you can do the same. Forgive your father if you can. Forgive me if you wish. But, most important, forgive yourself. I have left you some money, most of what I had left. In fact, I think you might have some expenses when you return here. The money should be enough to cover them. There is a bank in Peshawar. Farid knows the location. The money is in a safe deposit box. I have given you the key. As for me, it's time to go. I have little time left, and I wish to spend it alone. Please do not go looking for me. That is my final request of you. I leave you in the hands of God. Your friend always, Rahim. I dragged the hospital gown sleeve across my eye. I unfolded the letter and put it in under my mattress. And yet the socially legitimate half, the half that represented the riches he had inherited, and the sin with impunity, privileges that came with him. Maybe that was why Baba and I have been on such better terms in the US. I wondered, selling junk for petty cash, our menial jobs, our groomy apartment, the American version of a hut. Maybe in America, when Baba looked at me, he saw a little bit of Hassan. Your father, like you, was a tortured soul, Rahim Khan had written. Maybe so. We had both sinned and betrayed, but Baba had found a way to create good of his remorse. What had I done, other than take my guilt out on the very same people I had betrayed, and then try to forget it all? What had I done, other than become an insomniac? What had I done to right things? When the nurse, not Aisha, but a haired woman whose name escapes me, walked in with a syringe in a hand and asked me if I needed a morphine injection, I said yes. They removed the chest tube early in the next morning, and Armand gave the staff the go-ahead to let me sip apple juice. I asked Aisha for a mirror. When she placed the cup of juice on the dresser next to my bed, she lifted her bifocals to her forehead, and as she pulled the curtain open and let the morning sun flood into the room. Remember now, she said over her shoulder. It would look better in a few days. My son-in-law was in a moped accident last year. His handsome face was dragged on the asphalt and became purple, like an eggplant. Now he's beautiful again, like a Hollywood movie star. Despite her reassurances, looking in the mirror and seeing that thing that insisted it was my face left me a little breathless. It looked like someone had struck an air pump nozzle under my skin, had pumped away. My eyes were puffy and blue. The worst of it was my mouth, a grotesque blob of purple and red, all bruises and stitches. I tried to smile, and a blot of pain ripped through my lips. I wouldn't be doing that for a while. There were stitches across my left cheek, just under the chin, on the forehead, just below the hairline. The old guy with the leg cast said something in Urdu. I gave him a shrug and shook my head. He pointed to his face, patted it, and grinned a wide, toothless grin. Very good, he said in English. Inshallah. Thank you, I whispered. Farid and Sohrab came in just as I put the mirror away. Sohrab took his seat on the stool, rested his head on the bedside rail. I know the sooner you get out of here, the better, Farid said. Dr. Farouqi says, I don't mean the hospital, I mean Peshawar. Why? I don't think you'll be safe here for long, Farid said. He lowered his voice. The Taliban have friends here. They will start looking for you. I think they'd already may have, I murmured. The thought suddenly of the bearded man who wandered into the room and just stood there staring at me. Farid leaned in. As soon as you can walk, I'll take you to Islamabad. Not entirely safe there either. No place in Pakistan is, but it's better than here. At least it'll buy you some time. Farid John, this can't be safe for you either. Maybe it shouldn't be silly of me. You have a family to take care of. Farid made a waving gesture. My boys are around, but they are very shrewd. They know how to take care of their mothers and sisters. He smiled. Besides, I didn't say I'd do it for free. I wouldn't let you if you offered, I said. I forgot I couldn't smile and tried. A tiny streak of blood trickled down my chin. Can I ask her for one more favor? For you, 1,000 times over. And just like that, I was crying. I hitched gusts of air, tears gushing down my cheeks, stinging the raw flesh of my lips. What's the matter? Farid alarmed. I buried my face in one hand and held up the other. I knew the whole room was watching me. After, I felt tired, hollow. I'm sorry, I said. Sohrab was looking at me with a frown creasing his brow. When I could walk and talk again, I told Farid what I needed. Rahim Khan said they live here in Peshawar. Maybe you should write down their names, Farid said, eyeing me cautiously, as if wondering what might set me off next. I scribbled their names on a scrap of paper towel. John and Betty Caldwell. Farid pocketed the folded piece of paper. I will look for them as soon as I can, he said. He turned to Sohrab. As for you, I'll pick you up this evening. Don't tire Amir Agha too much. But Sohrab had wandered to the window, where a half-dozen pigeons strutted back and forth on the sill, pecking at wood and scraps of old bread. In the middle drawer of the dresser beside my bed, I had found an old National Geographic magazine. A chewed-up pencil, a comb with missing teeth, and what I was reaching for now, sweat pouring down my face with the effort, a deck of cards. I had counted them earlier and surprisingly found the deck complete. I asked Sohrab if he wanted to play. I didn't expect him to answer, let alone play. He'd been quiet since we left Kabul. But he turned from the window and said, the only game I know is Panjapar. I feel sorry for you already because I'm a grandmaster at Panjapar, world renowned. He took his seat on the stool next to me. I dealt with him his 5 cards. When your father and I were your age, we used to play this game, especially in the winter. When it snowed, we couldn't go outside. We used to play in the sun went down until the sun went down. He played me a card. I picked one from the pile. I still looks at him as he pondered his cards. He was his father in so many ways. The way he found out his cards with both hands, the way he squinted while reading them, the way he rarely looked at the person in the eye. He played in silence. I won the first game, let him win the second one, and lost the next 5 fair and square. You're as good as your father, maybe even better, I said after my last loss. I used to beat him sometimes, but I think he let me win. I paused before saying, your father and I were nursed by the same woman. I know. What did he tell you about us? That you were the best friend he ever had, he said. I twirled the jack of diamonds in my finger, played it back and forth. I wasn't such a good friend, I'm afraid, I said. But I'd like to be your friend. I think I could be a good man to you, a good friend. Would that be all right? Would you like that? I put my arm on his arm, gingerly, but he flinched. He dropped his cards and pushed away on the stool. He walked back to the window. The sky was awash with streaks of red and purple as the sun set on Peshawar. From the street below a succession of honks and the braying of a donkey, the whistle of policemen. Sohrab stood in that crimson light, forehead pressed onto the glass, fists buried in his armpits. Aisha had a male assistant, helped me take my first steps in that night. I only walked around the room once, one hand clutching the wheeled TV stand, the other collapsing the assistant's forearm. It took me 10 minutes to make it back to bed, and by then the incision on my stomach throbbed and I broke out in a drenching sweat. I lay in bed gasping and my heart hammering in my ears, thinking how much I've missed my wife. Sohrab and I played Panchapad most of the next day, again in silence, and the day after that. We hardly spoke. We always played Panchapad. We propped in bed on the three-legged stool. Our routine broke only by taking a walk around the room or going to the bathroom down the hall. I had a dream later that night. I dreamed Asif was standing in the doorway of my hospital room, brass ball still in his eye socket. We're the same, you and I, he was saying. You nursed with him, but you're my twin. I told Armand early the next day that I was leaving. It's too early for discharge, Armand protested, but he wasn't dressed in surgical scrubs that day. Insisted a button-down navy blue suit and yellow tie. Instead, the gel was back into the hair. You are still in intravenous antibiotics and I have to go, I said. I appreciate everything you've done for me so far. All of you. Really, but I have to leave. Where will you go? Armand said. I'd rather not say. You can hardly walk. I can walk to the end of the hall and back, I said. I'll be fine. The plan was this. Leave the hospital, get the money from the safe deposit box and pay the medical bills. Drive to the orphanage and drop Sohrab off with Joan and Betty Caldwell. Then get a ride to Islamabad and change travel plans. Give myself a few days to get better. Fly home. That was the plan. Anyway, until Farida and Sohrab arrived that morning, your friend and John and Betty Caldwell, they weren't in Peshawar. Farid said. It had taken me 10 minutes just to slip into my Pirhan Tumban. My chest, where they'd cut me to insert the chest tube, hurt when I raised my arm, and my stomach throbbed every time I leaned over. I was walking, drawing ragged breaths just from the effort of packing a few of my long belongings into a brown paper bag, but I'd managed to get ready and was sitting on the edge of the bed when Farid came in with the news. Sohrab sat on the bed next to me. Where did they go? I asked. Farid shook his head. You don't understand. Because Rahim Khan said, I went to the U.S. consulate. Farid said, picking up my bag. There never was a John and Betty Caldwell in Peshawar. According to the people at the consulate, they never existed. Not here in Peshawar, anyhow. Next to me, Sahra was flipping through the pages of an old National Geographic. We got the money from the bank. The manager, a punchy man with sweat patches under his arms, kept flashing smiles and telling me that no one in the bank had touched the money. Absolutely nobody, he said gravely, swinging the index finger in the same direction, the same way as Armand had. Driving through the Peshawar with so much money in a paper bag was a slightly frightening experience. Plus, I suspected every bearded man who stared at me to be a talib killer, sent by Asif. Two things compound my fears. There was a lot of bearded men in Peshawar, and nobody stares, and everybody stares. What do we do with them? What do we do with him? Farid said, walking me slowly from the hospital accounting office back to the car. Sohrab was in the back seat of the Land Cruiser, looking at the traffic through the roll-down window, chest resting on his palms. He can't stay here in Peshawar, I said, panting. Nay, Amira Agha, he can't, Farid said. He'd read the questions in my words. I'm sorry, I wish I... That's all right, Farid, I said. I managed a tired smile. You have mouths to feed. A dog was standing next to the truck now, propped on its rear legs, paws on the truck's door. Tail wagging, Sohrab was petting the dog. I guess he goes to Islamabad for now, I said. I slept through most of the entire 4-hour ride to Islamabad. I dreamed a lot, and most of it I only remember a hodgepodge of images, snippets of visual memory flashing in my head, like cards in a Rolodex. Baba marinating lamb for my 13th birthday party. Soraya and I making love for the first time. The sun rising in the east. Our ears still ringing from the wedding music. Her henna-painted hands placed in mine. The time Baba had taken Hassan and me to a strawberry field in Jalalabad. The owner had told us that we could eat as much as we wanted to, as long as we bought at least 4 kilos. And how we'd both ended up with belly aches. How dark, almost black Hassan's blood had looked on the snow, dripping from the seat of his pants. Blood is a powerful thing, Basham, Khala Jamila patting Suraya's knee and saying, God knows best. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Sleeping on the roof of my father's house, Baba saying that the only sin that mattered was theft. When you tell a lie, you steal a man's right to the truth. Rahim Khan on the phone, telling me there was a good way to be good again. A way to be good again. Chapter 24. If Peshawar was the city that reminded me of Kabul used to be, then Islamabad was the city Kabul could have become someday. The streets were wider than Peshawar's, cleaner, and lined with rows of hibiscus and flame trees. The bazaars were more organized and more nearly as clogged with rickshaws and pedestrians. The architecture was more elegant too, more modern, and I saw parks where roses and jasmine bloomed in the shadows of trees. Farid found a small hotel on the side street, running along the foot of Margala Hills. We passed the famous Shah Faisal Mosque on the way there, reputedly the biggest mosque in the world, with its giant concrete girders and soaring minarets. Sohra pricked up at the sight of the mosque, leaning out of the window and looked at it until Farid turned a corner. The hotel room was a vast improvement over the one in Kabul, where Farid and I had stayed. The sheets were clean, the carpet vacuumed, and the bathroom spotless. There was a shampoo, soap, razors for shaving, a bathtub, and towels that smelled like lemon, and no bloodstains on the walls. One other thing, a television sat on the dresser across from the two single beds. Look, I said to Sohrab. I turned it manually, no remote, and turned the dial. I found a children's show with two fluffy sheep puppets singing in Urdu. Sohrab sat on one of the beds and drew his knee to his chest. Images from the TV reflected his green eyes as he watched, stone-faced, rocking back and forth. I remembered the time I promised Hassan I'd buy his family a color TV when we both grew up. I'll get along, I like going, Amir Agha, Farid said. Stay the night, I said. It's a long drive, leave tomorrow. Tashakkur, he said. But I want to get back tonight. I miss my children. On his way out the room, he paused in the doorway. Goodbye, Sohrab John, he said. He waited for a reply, but Sohrab paid no attention. Just rocked back and forth, his face lit by the silver glow of the images flickering around the screen. Outside, I gave him an envelope. He tore it, his mouth open. I don't know how to thank you, I said. You've done so much for me. How much is in here? Farid said, slightly dazed. A little over $2,000. He began. His lower lip was quivering a little. Later, when he pulled away from the curb, he honked twice and waved. I waved back. I never saw him again. I returned to the hotel room and found Sohrab lying on the bed, curled up in a big seat. His eyes were closed, but I couldn't tell if he was sleeping. He had shut off the television, and I sat on my bed and grimaced with pain, wiped the cool sweat off my brow. I wondered how much longer it would hurt to get up, sit down, roll over in bed. I wondered when I'd be able to eat solid food. I wondered what I'd do with the wounded little boy lying on the bed, though a part of me already knew. There was a carafe of water on the dresser. I poured a glass and took two of Armand's pain pills. The water was warm and bitter. I pulled the curtains, eased myself back on the bed, and lay down, and thought my chest would rip open. When the pain dropped a notch and I would breathe again, I pulled the blanket to my chest and waited for Armand's pills to work. When I woke up, the room was darker. The slice of sky peeking between the curtains was the purple of twilight turning into night. The sheets were soaked and my head pounded. I'd been dreaming again, but I couldn't remember what it had been about. My heart gave a sick lurch when I looked into Sohrab's bed and found it empty. I called his name. The sound of my voice startled me. It was disorienting sitting in a dark hotel room, thousands of miles from home, my body broken, calling the name of the boy I'd only met a few days ago. I called the name again, and I heard nothing. I struggled out of bed, checked the bathroom, looked in the narrow hallway outside the room. He was gone. I knocked the door and hobbled into the manager's office in the lobby, one hand clutching the rail along the walkway for support. There was a fake dusty palm tree in the corner of the lobby and flying pink flamingos on the wallpaper. I found the hotel manager reading a newspaper behind the Formica topped check-in counter. I described Sohrab to him. I asked if he'd seen him. He put his paper down and took off his reading glasses. He had greasy hair and a square-shaped little mustache speckled with gray. He smelled vaguely of some tropical fruit I couldn't quite recognize. Boys, they like to run around, he said, sighing. I have 3 of them. All day they are running around, troubling their mother. He fanned his face with the newspaper and staring at my jaws. I don't think he's out running around, I said. We're not from here. I'm afraid he might get lost. He bobbed his head from side to side. Then you should have kept an eye on him, mister. I know, I said, but I fell asleep and when I woke up he was gone. Boy must be tended to you know. Yes, I said, my pulse quickening. How could he be so oblivious to my apprehension? He shifted the newspaper and his hand resumed his fanning. They want bicycles now. Who? My boys. They're saying, Daddy, Daddy, please buy us a bicycle, and will not trouble you. Please, Daddy. He gave a short laugh, through his nose. Bicycles. Their mother will kill me, I swear to you. I imagined Sohrab lying in a ditch or in the trunk of some car, bound and gagged. I didn't want his blood on my hands. Not his, please, I said. I squinted, read his name, tag on the lapel of his short-sleeved blue cotton shirt. Dr. Fayez, have you seen him? The boy? I bit down. Yes, the boy who came with me. Have you seen her or not, for God's sake? His fan stopped, his eyes narrowed. No getting smart with me? My friend, I'm not the one who lost him. That he had a point did not stop the blood from rushing to my face. You're right, I'm wrong, my fault. Now, have you seen him? Sorry, he said curtly. He put his glasses back on, snapped his newspaper open. I have seen no such boy. I stood at the counter for a minute, trying not to scream. As I exited the lobby, he said, Any idea where he might have wandered to? No, I said. I felt tired and scared. Does he have any interests? He said. I saw he had folded the paper. My boys, for example, they would do anything for American action films, especially with that Arnold. What was that, Senegal? The mosque, I said, the big mosque. I remembered the way the mosque had jolted Sohrab from the stupor when he'd driven by it. Now, how he'd learned out of the window looking at it. Shah Faisal? Yes, can you take me there? Do you know it's a big mosque? It's the biggest mosque in the world? He said, no, but the courtyard alone can fit 40,000 people. Can you take me there? It's only a kilometer from here, he said, but he was already pushing away from the counter. I'll pay you for the ride, I said. He sighed and shook his head. Wait here. He disappeared into the bathroom, returned wearing another pair of eyeglasses, a set of keys in his hand, and with a short, chubby woman in an orange sari trailing him. She took his seat behind the counter. I don't take your money, he said, blowing by me. I will drive you because I'm a father like you. This concludes our reading of The Kite Runner from Off the Bookshelf. Your reader has been Hiba Khan. Thank you.